Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and tonight I've got a full house. Welcome, Mac
Good evening.
and Gio.
What is good, guys?
On today's podcast, we're going to be switching things up a little bit. We're going to be giving you guys a tier list of Jurgen Klopp's signings while he's been at Liverpool. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social media, both on X and Instagram. Our handle is at @houseof_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. And lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. But yeah, let me throw it to Mac. Mac's going to sort of dictate the pod today. So go ahead, Mac.
Thank you, Ray. So today, again, as Ray had highlighted, we're going to focus on Jurgen Klopp and all of his signings since he joined Liverpool back in October of 2015. He signed quite a few players with his impending, of course, leave of Liverpool. It'll be very interesting to take a look back and kind of see the impact of players that he brought in. And we're focusing on a couple key aspects and why we may leave out certain players. We're only counting players that did play at least a Premier League game for Liverpool. Of course, some of the youth academy players that came up through the youth ranks, Alexander Arnold, we're going to skip over as well because they weren't a direct signing. So we're specifically focusing on transfer signing. So I want to be able to keep that, make sure in mind. So if you we missed anybody out, that's why. But to break down, we're going to go over the 5 different tiers we as hosts are going to break them down into. How it's going to work is where I'm going to toss the initial player to Ray first. Being the Liverpool fan, he'll give us our purely unbiased / biased take, rank him there. To then Gio is going to kind of maybe eke it around a little bit, give some touch points or regrets that Manchester United did not in fact sign this player. And there'll be a couple of those that I'll definitely pick out Gio just to make sure we keep you enjoying the podcast. And then with that being said, I think what we'll do is, as I had mentioned, and just be able to clarify, we're going to break it up per year. So in 2015 in October, of course, it was outside the transfer window, so there weren't any signings. And it really started in 2016. And even at the beginning of 2016, during that January transfer window, Jurgen Klopp had no signings for Liverpool. It all started in the summer. And in that summer window, there are quite a few players. But I think the first one we want to pick out, and arguably the most important from the first window, we'll see what Ray thinks, is Sadio Mane. And just to clarify again, going through the tiers before I continue, is we've broken down to 5 tiers: is masterclass, quality player, has some potential, meh, and Coutinho to Barca. So I think those are fairly self-explanatory of why a player may go there where. But to start off, like I said, we're going to continue with Sadio Mane. So Ray, just to be able to clarify, he joined June 30th in 2016 from Southampton for 41.20 Great British pounds. What are your thoughts about Sadio Mane? Where would you potentially put him on this tier list?
Yeah, that's a great start, boys. I was kind of playing around in my head with this pick, if it would be between two categories, and I think it might have to go with masterclass. I was kind of dabbling on the quality player side, but just looking back at his Liverpool career, of course, just under 270 games, 120 goals, 48 assists, really made himself, I think, through his time at Southampton, he was kind of announcing himself in the Premier League. But at Liverpool, of course, winning everything that he did, I just have to agree. I guess I have to put it out there that I think he's pivotal to the success that Liverpool have had. Of course, it's going to go down to your Salahs, your Van Dijk, your Alissons, for what's actually been accomplished, and the plaudits will go to them. But I think, of course, Sadio Mane has been a big part. So I'm going to put him up there at masterclass, considering his impact at Liverpool.
Gio, what do you think about that?
I'd have to agree. Agree in the sense that for what he's done, I know he's had some dips near the end of his at his tenure at Liverpool, but for what he's done, although a lot of light has shed on say his relationship with Mo Salah or anything of that nature, he was able to keep it professional enough for them to win many games, win a Champions League title, and win the Premier League, which is massive, which is what you can really ask for from a player in terms of keeping it professional and keeping your personal issues off the pitch while you perform. So to that, I think he's a true professional, and what he's contributed to Liverpool's success. Obviously, not winning a Premier League title for so long. I think Liverpool fans watching this would have to agree that he's in the masterclass level.
For me, I'm more so lean towards the Ray area where I think he's either at the top end of a quality player or the bottom end of a masterclass. Because for me, he would say one of from the title winning team, is he in the top 3 players of that team? I would argue no. I would say of even the forward line, he's probably the most replaceable from that team. I think that's a fair argument. So again, it's close. I understand why you both feel that way. Generally, I would stick with kind of what you're saying, and I'll go along with the masterclass. But I feel like maybe towards the end of the podcast, we may want to look at that a little bit later. But with that start, let's continue on to the next player, and I'm going to go to the other side of the pitch, and I'm going to go to somebody. And I think what we want to take into account is the value of the transfer, because it's not just if we spend a lot of money, we should expect great things. I understand in recent years, maybe some of the signings, a la Anthony, doesn't work out that way. But someone that did come in for free for Jurgen Klopp was Joel Matip from FC Schalke. And that was back in 2016. Right. What are your thoughts about Joel Matip? He's actually still with the club currently.
With the club currently, I think his deal ends at the end of the season, and of course he's out with a long-term injury, so likely, unfortunately for him, this is the last time we've seen him in the Liverpool jersey. But that is to say, Joel Matip has been, again, it's kind of like kind of in between with what I said for Sadio Mane. I'm going to have to just put him at quality player. Of course, he's been vital to and pivotal to making the success and really anchoring that back line with Virgil van Dijk. I think if you really just think of the 2 center backs for Liverpool during the golden years, these last, I would say, 4 or 5 years, you definitely have Van Dijk and Joel Matip as the 2. And of course, he's been amazing. My only gripe with him is he's been injured a lot and missed very dearly in certain games, and so that's kind of why I put him a little bit lower in the quality player category. But I think it's very much like Sadio Mane. The value that you get from him, though, amazing. One of the best free transfers, of course, I would argue, in Liverpool history. So yeah, I'm gonna have to put him at quality player.
Gio, what do you think?
I would have to disagree with that. I would have to put him in the middle of the, well, not has some potential, had some potential, and in that area, edging closer to man, because he was surrounded by so many great players. I think that elevated how important he actually was. Yes, his job. I don't think his job was that difficult considering who he was surrounded with. Just some ball clearances. He has the height. He has the pretty much professional skill to be able to execute that. But was he really outstanding? Yes, he did his job. He did his part. But because of the injuries, because again, who he's surrounded by, great keeper. The only time he didn't really have a great keeper was probably in the Champions League final versus Real Madrid, and we all know what happened there. So yeah, I'll put Joel Matip in the middle of the has had some potential.
I would ask then, Ray, this may sway you one way or another, just depending on how you answer this question. Would you think Matip is a player we'll get to later on, of course, Virgil van Dijk's best centre-back partnership or partner that he's had at Liverpool? We may talk about other players down the line, Konate, signing, of course, under Jurgen Klopp. Is there another partner alongside Van Dijk at Liverpool that maybe was better than him, or do you think he was the best option beside Van Dijk? Well, they've both been at Liverpool.
I really do think he has been the best option. Of course, Dejan Lovren was amazing. No, I'm kidding. Matip is by far, I think, the best center partnership, just because of what he does give Liverpool. So, of course, we'll talk about Van Dijk a little bit more, but Van Dijk, when he first started at Liverpool, very much the athlete controlling everything, and Joel Matip would be more of the ball playing center back and would sort of be the more reserved center back. Now that has sort of shifted with Konate, but I think ultimately the best that both players got was that partnership with Joe Matip being more of the quote unquote brain, and Van Dijk was more of the force. So I think that made the partnership a lot flourish a lot more, and I think that's actually what made Van Dijk the player that he is today. So I do think that that's been the best partnership for both of them.
So then I think for me, what I'll say is based off the fact that he was in for a free, just the value for money that you can get from a type of player like that. I'm going to outvote you there, Gio, and put him over into quality player. Just because, again, value for money, you're probably not getting that quality of a player on a free in most cases. And Ray being kind of the Liverpool fan there, saying that he's probably been the best partnership that he's had, Van Dijk has had, which I think we can all say, and we'll get to it later, we'll definitely have strong favors of how we feel about Van Dijk. So having a good partnership there is very important. Now, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and even though it may be a little bit disrespectful to these players I'm going to list, I'm going to go and list 3 different players all signed in 2016 that we can kind of breeze past. Not that I can as disrespect, but let's be real here in terms of where they're standing are in the hierarchy of remembrance for Liverpool. I'm going to go Ragnar Klavan, Steven Kalker, and Marko Grujic. Right. I want you to ask you a serious question. Of those 3 players, does any one of them not deserve to be in Met? The reason why, Grujic, £7 million. Steven Kalker was a loan transfer, and of course Ragnar Klavan was for £5 million. So I don't think any of them deserve to really has some potential because they never showed it. Because they were so cheap, can't necessarily really put them in Coutinho to Barca. So I think they have to go in Met. That's my first take. Would you feel any differently about any of those?
The only one that I would feel different about would be Marko Grujic. Of course, Mac, I'm not sure if you recall, when I was following Liverpool at that time, I thought Marko Grujic would be the next big thing. Ultimately, I don't think he played many games at Liverpool. I can't even recall any real Premier League games that stand out. Maybe a couple of Europa League games. So I'm going to have to put that down to Coutinho at Barca for that category. And then, Klavan, I'm okay with at Meh. And I'm okay with having, I think the last player was Kalker. He came... He was a loan move. It was just a stopgap. He played striker for us a couple of times. I don't know why, but I'm not mad at that. So that was meh for me.
Gio, what about you? How do you feel about? Let me ask you this: do you remember any of those players playing for Liverpool? I think that might be the easiest way to start it.
I think I was just gonna say, to be honest, I didn't even know these players existed, let alone play for Liverpool. So. Do as you will, do as you please. I believe you. I trust you on this one.
Okay, fair enough. So this is now the adjustment to what we made. Let me know, because I'll be honest with you, some of the players' faces, again, I couldn't recognize them. I was looking them up like, did they really look like that? But let's move on to, let's bring back a little bit pain to Ray's life. And someone who actually has had a recent impact on the Premier League, playing for Newcastle. And that's, of course, Loris Karius. He signed again for Liverpool back in 2016. He very much was a reserve option behind, at that time, the starter Simon Mignolet, which, again, I know brings a lot of joy to Ray to hear that name. But at that time, £6.2 million from SFV Mainz. I would argue not a horrible signing for that money, but just the impact I think gonna have, and at least we'll give him some points. He's a great looking guy. Like, you have to be honest. So at least that's a little bit of a positive, I feel like. But I guess on that end, Ray, where would you initially put him in this tier list?
Yeah, definitely deserves to be in a different type of catalog. Maybe not in this catalog. I'm gonna have to put him. Unfortunately, I do rate him. He's fine. But of course, with what happened, and I think a lot of Liverpool fans, even though they might not be, might not say out loud, still blame him for that Champions League result and Champions League final result. So I'm gonna have to put him at Coutinho at Barca, unfortunately.
Gio, how would you feel about it? What? You kind of came from that particular final from a different viewpoint, being a Real Madrid fan. So you definitely enjoyed maybe his blunders. Do you think that's too harsh? How do you feel?
I think it's harsh. I think it's harsh because he was kind of thrown into that situation. I don't think he was that first choice goalkeeper, anyways. So to have him in there in a final against a front three like that, I think anybody in their right minds would be nervous. But I think he'd be sort of in the middle between Meh and continue to Barca. I think he did what he had to do, but he couldn't achieve what he needed to. So I think that just comes down to, you paid 6.2, but he wasn't gonna be your number one goalkeeper by any word. So I think he sits, for me at least, smack dab in the middle of Meh. But no, he sits at Meh, but because of the blunder, he kind of sits in between the two. So Mac, I'll gladly let you have the final call on where you want to place him.
I think, given just kind of what we talked about, is where if that final never happened, I would argue he would be top of men, because what other impact did he really have, right? He was only playing due to injury, didn't play many games, hasn't really shown anything afterwards, I would say. But it feels like mistakes like that at a high profile may have tarnished his career, because he wasn't, in my opinion, a poor goalkeeping prospect at the time. He was a very young lad going over to Liverpool anyway. He was really much supposed to be the understudy. So he was kind of thrown in the fire and wasn't able to cut it. It happens. So for me, I don't want to put him, I would put him top of Coutinho to Barca, not at the bottom. So still behind Grugic, again, who I could not pick out of a lineup today, to be honest. So let's move on to more positivity. And let's go with, maybe, if I recall correctly, one of Ray's favorite players, and the last one actually of 2016. And we're going to go with Wijnaldum. Wijnaldum for Liverpool. Yeah, again, it was always scary to me when thinking about that one team that started the I think it was which European final was it? Was against Tottenham, where that was, everyone thought was the Jurgen Klopp 11, but it was only the one time they ever actually played a game all at the same time. And I think part of it was because Wijnaldum was always injured. But coming over from Newcastle for £27.5 million, I would argue is a good steal. Where would you put him on this tier list, Ray?
Yeah, I will have to definitely put him at quality player for what he was able to achieve at Liverpool. Again, one of the players that made up that romanticized midfield three of Fabinho, Wijnaldum, and the man who will not be named. The GOAT, yeah. He did a lot of carrying for that midfield, I would say, a lot of the legs, and it was really missed after he left the club. And so I think he was really good while he was at the club. One of my favorite signings as well, that really solidified that midfield, and so that's why I have to put him at quality player.
Would you put him above or below Joe Matip?
I might have to put him below, just because he did leave. He left on a high, but longevity-wise, Matip, I think, has stuck with Liverpool through it all, and so I would have to just put him just below.
Gio, quick thoughts. Any disagreements or additions you want to make to Ray's comment about Wijnaldum?
No, I think he sits where he's supposed to. Obviously, I think Liverpool fans could be a little bitter that he left when he left, because there was just so much potential to be had. And again, we saw the level dip in the midfield, once he did leave. So I think there is a little frustration there. But yeah, I have no problems with him sitting below Matip on this one.
Okay, perfect. So we'll have that adjustment there. That's done. Now we're moving on to 2017. And this is where, I guess, at the time of Jurgen Klopp's career at Liverpool, where the first season, that went pretty well. And he got a little bit more of a bite at the apple in terms of spending some money. And of course, all started with Mohamed Salah back in 2017. He came over from AS Roma for £42 million, as I said, in 2017. So, Ray, I'm going to give it to you right there. How does he not? Would you argue or make the argument that Mohamed Salah is the best signing Liverpool has ever made?
I think you have to make the argument for that, and it likely wins 3 out of 4 arguments easily. I think just what he's done. I mean, I'm not going to go too much into it, but yeah, I would have to put him at the very top. Even though personally, I think the achievements from the team should be shared more around. He's definitely going to be the guy that everyone looks at in the history books based on numbers, based on the impact that he's had. At him at number one, so I think it's easy for me to say that.
What about you, Gio?
Let's just move on. He's top tier. He's S tier. He's whatever the tier is. He owns it. He owns it.
Okay, so we moved him top of Masterclass. We'll keep that nice, short, and sweet. But we do want to give him his flowers there. I would have to say, and the second player we're going to is, I think we'll join him right beside him, is Virgil van Dijk. For me, they're 1-2-2-1. I can make the debate one way or the other. I personally, if you were asking if I were to start a team, who would I rather have? I would have Van Dijk, because you can kind of build everything with him, and you can kind of do any option with him. You can play any style of defense, you can play any style of team, and you'll excel at it. Versus Salah, it felt like more of, not to say he's a system player, I feel like that would be a little disrespectful, but I feel like he exemplifies and he gets so many advantages that fit his personal type of style. Playing for Jurgen Klopp, playing in the pressing system, not really have to worry about playing as a traditional winger, where I lean Van Dijk. So personally, I would go Van Dijk 1, Salah 2, but I could see the argument the other way. So continue on with that. Right. I have Mohamed Salah as 1, Van Dijk 2, of course, signed in same 2017. There's a whole, I guess, kerfuffle in regards to the fee from Southampton. It was long rumored, and at that time was the most expensive defender ever bought, of course, until Harry Maguire, Gio, as you may remember, and it was for £84.65 million. Ray, where would you put Van Dijk? In front of Salah, beside Salah, in second place under that masterclass? What do you think?
I would have to put him. Oof. Now that you make that argument, I would have to put him next to Salah in that masterclass signing, just because famously Salah wasn't part of the big comeback against Barcelona, and he's missed a few games, big games, especially finals for Liverpool, where of course Liverpool will go on and win the competition, and of course a constant has been Van Dijk, and you know how I personally value Van Dijk for Liverpool, so yeah, I would have to put them side by side. I think a lot of fans will argue that's Salah first, based on, of course, goal contributions, but for me, side by side is more than enough.
So wait, so just to clarify, because we have to have an order here. Are you putting Van Dijk 1, Salah 2, or Salah 1, Van Dijk 2?
I have to put Salah first, though.
Salah first. Okay, fair enough. I can tweak to disagree, but I understand. We'll go with your thought initially. Gio, I guess give me your thoughts, and as a third party, who do you think gets a statue first outside Anfield?
Would have to be Mo Salah. It would have to be Mo Salah, especially if they win the title this year. I think the choice that he made to stay, obviously he got paid a lot of money, but the choice that he made to stay rather than go get paid in PSG or Saudi Arabia, where there is even more money to be made, I think speaks to his loyalty to the club. And if they win this year, he will definitely get that statue eventually down the line. Maybe even a number retirement. But for now, I would have it the same as Ray here, and I would have Van Dijk below Salah. And it's always the case where the goals always gets, the rave. The highlights,
I agree.
The love. So, not to knock, VVD on anything. He's a staple in that back line. Without him, you've seen you see the impact that he makes on the pitch and when he's been injured last season, and it's massive. It's huge. So, but no, I think Mo Salah is still top dog here.
Fair enough. So we've moved Mo Salah to the top, Van Dijk second, and of course, right now, only other player in the masterclass tier is Sadio Mane, which when he's beside those two, kind of feels like he doesn't belong. I don't mean to be rude. But let's move on to maybe a little bit more of ruined potential, and then might hurt my soul a little bit more than Ray. Let's go with Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Of course, chemo from Arsenal. It hurt me to see him go in a lot of ways. I'll be honest with you, because he was a player that came in young, a lot of potential, but injuries just seemed to cut his Arsenal career short. Maybe you feel like that, Ray, in terms of his career with Liverpool, but he came over for £38 million. Where would you put the Big Ox on this tier list?
Definitely, career has been short at Liverpool. Well, was cut short at Liverpool with injuries, and so actually have him. It could have been great when he first came. Of course, the goal that stands out is against Man City. I think in the league or in the Champions League, um, but definitely hasn't lived up to that potential. So I would have him just at meh, just because, of course, the way it turned out, but definitely had potential when he first signed. And so, yeah, that's my decision there.
How do you feel about that?
No, I agree. I think he would sit sort of in the middle of the pack to the end of the pack. No, actually, he'd sit top of the pack to meh. He'll
Top of
sit
the pack,
top of the
man.
pack of meh.
Okay.
Top of the pack of meh.
Sounds good. That works well for me. I'm completely on board with that. So I'll move Ox over there as well. But to be able to continue on with the list, let's wrap up 2017 too quickly with two players. Solanke, of course, it doesn't really shine at Liverpool, now shining in the Premier League currently. I think is he second in goals right now, if I remember correctly? Correct me if
He's
I'm
up there.
Yeah, I think he's in the top three of okay, fair enough. Where would you put Dominic Solanke on this? He was again a free transfer coming over from the U23 Chelsea side, so a little bit advantageous on that, and so a little still free, but right now killing it for Bournemouth. Where would you put him on this tier list?
I originally had him at Coutinho to Barca just because it didn't turn out the way it we hoped it would. But considering he made that big move from a rival, I would say, and actually did go on to play a decent amount of games and then was sold for a profit, I'd have to put him at meh just because of that. What do you think, Gio?
For what he did at Liverpool, which is not that much, just solely strictly on what he's done at Liverpool, I would agree. Obviously, just to correct ourselves too, he's currently sitting fourth, as you know. Jared Bowen had a crazy hat trick, and then kind of jumped him on the table there. Mo Salah, I believe, got a goal or two recently, which bumped him down as well. But he's killing now. He's finally found his kind of club or his kind of setting to be that target man. But no, I would have him at meh as well.
Okay, so let's continue on and wrap up 2017. I know we're going along here with arguably. I was going to go into this podcast here with I think should be top of the list with Andy Robertson. Hear me out before both of you yell at me. I understand. I am a little bit biased. Okay, that's incorrect. I am completely biased on this, and definitely I have a little bit of a thing for Scottish fullbacks, as we all know. But the fact that you got, I would argue, probably one of the best defenders in the world for such a period for £9 million from Hull City, a Premier League rival. So it's not like he was a hidden gem, quote unquote. I would argue he should be in the Master Race just based off the value and what you're able to get out of him. At some years, definitely early on in his Premier League, I would argue he was better than Trent in terms of what he was able to bring. Now, of course, I think Trent has surpassed him now, considering injuries and age and all that stuff. But I would argue during their title-winning season and seasons around that, he was the second best defender on the team beside Van Dijk, which is no slouch. So I would have him above Sadio and Mane based off this list. But let me hear, Ray. What are your thoughts here?
So I do also have him as masterclass. 9 mil from a relegated club. I mean, the longevity that he's had at Liverpool, winning it pretty much, winning it all as well with the club and being still part of the club. Have to make it a masterclass because you can't really expect to have, or at least the fact that you spent less than 10 mil on a player that has lasted you for, I would say, close to 8 years now. That in itself should be more than enough. And of course, he's been the starter. That's been his position. And if you look back again, when you think about the 11 for Liverpool, he's nailed that position down for himself. I would put him below Sadio Mane, but I do have him at masterclass. What about you, Gio?
Just look at the list of clubs that want him and have wanted him over the past couple of years. That's already speaks volumes for what he can contribute to a club. Obviously, Liverpool took that gamble on him, and evidently it has paid off immensely. So, above Mane though,
Okay.
again, I would have him above Mane. I think again, the way they have he and Trent, obviously Trent not being on the list because he was an actual transfer, like Back said, the way he's contributed on both ends of the pitch, I think, kind of outweigh the contribution that of Mane's.
Okay. So I guess with that being said, we'll leave him in terms at the top in the masterclass tier, above Sadio Mane, below Van Dijk and Mohamed Salah. As we've outvoted Ray there. Sorry, I know you're the Liverpool fan, but 2-1 wins. In the meantime, though, what we're going to do is take a quick break. I know we've gone long here, and we'll continue back with some and ranking Jurgen Klopp's best signings for Liverpool, coming back with 2019. So stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy. And correction, we're not going to 2019, we're going to 2018. We don't want to skip a year. There's a couple key signings over there for Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. And we're going to start off with arguably the greatest goalkeeper in the world for the last 5-6 years, maybe even the last decade. No disrespect to Manuel Neuer. Of course, that means we're going to the Brazilian Alisson, who signed for Liverpool back in 2018. The signing was for £62.5 million, which was at that time a record for a goalkeeper. Of course, which has been broken, I think, twice by Kepa, funny enough, if you remember. So again, that's always nice to go back and take a look at. Ray, where would you put Alisson on this tier list?
Again, one of those staples for Liverpool, right behind Van Dijk. When you think about what made Liverpool so good defensively, the goalkeeper. His shot stopping has been amazing. Might not be the best with his feet, but I think on his day, the best shot stopper in the world. Then you can just argue anything else in terms of with his feet and everything else. So, yeah, that's where I put him. What about you, Gio?
Shot stopper, goal scorer, virtually a fifth defender. You have to put him at masterclass. Where you have him right now above Robertson, I think is perfect.
Okay, perfect. That was nice and easy. Let's go on to someone made of glass, and I think, of course, we all know who that means. I think prior to Ousmane Dembele at Barca, the injury to kind of ambulance Amin squarely fit in the realm of Naby Keita. Course with Liverpool. Ray, where would you potentially put Naby Keita on this tier list? Signed back in 2018 for 60 million pounds from RB Leipzig.
So I'm sure, Mac, you remember this player, Abu Dhabi. We can pretty safely name the regen of Abu Dhabi as Naby Keita because of the time he spent out on the sidelines being injured. Unfortunately for him, very, very big disappointment. And personally as well, one of my favorite signings at that time. He basically, what happened was Gerrard had left the club, and then Keita approached him and asked him if he could take the number 8. Gerrard agreed, and I think that might have been the downfall. Very much like, I guess, you don't want to be the guy replacing Sir Alex at Man U. You don't want to be the guy replacing Gerrard's number, and ultimately that's what happened. And so, unfortunately for him, I'd have to put him at Coutinho to Barca in that category.
Where in Coutinho to Barca, to clarify? Would you put him up, like at the bottom? Below Gerchich and Loris Karius, or would you put him at the top? Where would you? Because considering 60 million pounds,
yeah. I mean, he did stay and played a little. He did play enough games, and at times looked like he was going to be there for maybe a couple more game weeks in a string of time. So I'll put him right at the top of Coutinho to Barca, but that's my limit. What about you, Gio?
I would. So he is the only man in the world with smaller shin pads than myself. But I would actually have him at the middle of
all the time.
Hey, I'm not hurt. I would have him in between Karius, not at the top. Solely what Max said. The value that they brought him in at is shocking. For the output. I think you kind of have to factor that in.
I would have to agree with Gio. So slight change to what Ray said. We'll put him, as you can see, right below Loris Karius. As of right now, we're ranked the second worst signing Poor Grujic. You'll definitely get company soon. Don't worry. But continuing on for 2018, we're going to go bring back another positive player, of course. Someone who's still playing soccer, but no longer, of course, in the Premier League is Fabinho, who signed the exact same, I think it was the same transfer window as Allison, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ray. That's in the summer.
Would have been the summer, yeah.
Monaco, after their run of form. And that's, of course, when you saw like Bernardo Silva, Bakayoko, a bunch of other players leave that team after their run in the Champions League. And he was their defensive midfielder coming over to Liverpool, the phenomenal wall, for £45 million. Where would you put him on this tier list?
I have him right now at the top of quality player. Just scraping the masterclass section there. Very, very pivotal. Again, thinking of the 11 that really made it happen for Liverpool was vital in his role. I just think, I guess, much like Sadio Mane, his time kind of cut short. And though he, I think, on his day would have been one of the best players in his position, it was a short window while he was at Liverpool. He made the best out of it, but towards the end, you could see that he was getting exposed. A host of different issues causing that, but ultimately, a very good servant to the club. I'll have him at the top of quality player for me.
What about you, Gio?
100% agree. I think, a lot would argue like, yes, his latter half of the time spent at Liverpool was a little questionable, but the way they leaned on him to be able to allow players to push forward as freely as they did was pivotal. And the way he was just a staple back there, just in front of the defensive line, I would say, in my personal opinion, worth every penny of that $45 million transfer fee. So, I would wholeheartly agree with Ray here.
I absolutely agree, and he's going to go top of quality player. Definitely scraped on the heels of Masterclass, but maybe didn't have the heights, nor the longevity. And that's what's keeping him out of that tier, in my opinion. Now, to wrap up 2018, we're going to go to a player who can and did play in a rainy night in Stoke, Xherdan Shaqiri, for £14.7 million coming over. At that time, if I remember correctly, they were actually in the Championship. I think they got relegated, and that's what. And he was signed to kind of be that fourth attacker behind a Salah or a Mane if either one of them got hurt, or rotations, or Africa Cup of Nations, anything like that. He was kind of the first option in to play on that wing and still provide great quality. So I think for that signing, I think it's a great one. Definitely under the radar, not too dissimilar. And in today's world, as an Arsenal fan, a player who I look at. Oh my God! Name is Belgian.
Trossard?
Yeah, Trossard. Yes, exactly. Haha. Thank you, Ray. Appreciate you. You read my mind.
I'm thinking that too.
No, exactly. Like that type of player, I think for the money, it's pure quality. That's my general thought. What about you, Ray?
You had mentioned it all already, so I'm going to slot him at the first player to the category of had some potential. I feel like he definitely did well enough to be in and around the 11. But of course, when all the 11 that we sort of associate with the golden 11, he unfortunately didn't make it there. And if he was a quality player at the time, and definitely did enough to sort of help Liverpool achieve what they done, but just wish that he also as well strung a couple more games together and then also maybe partook in that first 11 more. So I'm gonna have him in that category. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I think he sits perfectly there. Obviously the first to join the group, but I think he had a little bit of contribution here and there, but nothing crazy. Yeah, they used him for his pace. It was a good addition for, I should say, 14 mil. There wasn't any super risk on that one. Maybe except for him possibly getting injured and not playing for a while. But a player of his stature, a player who's played at many big clubs for 14 mil, you like to add those depth players. So having him I think was no harm, no foul.
Fair enough. So I just made an adjustment on what kind of Ray said and got kind of triggered something in my mind. What's changed, updated, instead of just has some potential, he had some potential. It wasn't necessarily, he wasn't a quality player. He wasn't meh, but he was somewhere in the middle, and he could have swung either way, but he ended up kind of landing right in the middle between those two areas. So I think that's a fine spot for Xherdan Shaqiri. Now let's continue on, where these next couple of years were very light in the transfer window for FSG and Liverpool. Not many signings. And we're going to start off in the goalkeeping position with Adrian, who came over from West Ham on a free. I think what many non-Liverpool fans may not remember is that during that 2019 season, which was, I think that was the title win season, Alisson was injured for quite a bit of it, and Adrian had to step up. Was he good while he stepped up? No, not necessarily, but he was part of the team. So, Ray, what are your first thoughts on Adrian?
Yeah, that's a great shout, and glad that you gave him his flowers. But unfortunately, I'm gonna have to add him to Matt, just because. And this stands out a lot for some reason. Champions League against Atletico Madrid, he had not his best night. That was one of the times that Liverpool got knocked out by one of the two Madrid teams from the Champions League, and just has been a decent player. But again, if you're going to be overtaken by someone like Kelleher, who, give him props, he has been great since he's sort of been the number two. It's just been a meh time for him, and hopefully he's been able to collect the silverware that comes with it. So I'll leave him at meh. Yeah, right in the middle of meh for me.
Okay,
Gio?
Perfect.
No complaints here. Just
okay.
Your everyday average goalkeeper for me.
Fair enough. Oh, no, never mind. I won't go there. I don't want to hurt you right now, Gio. That's okay. Let's move on to another player that came over from the German league, actually, and it seems like that's a common theme with Klopp with a lot of the signings, from RB Salzburg, of course in the Bundesliga for £8.5 million, is Takumi Minamino, who was the final player actually bought in 2019. Ray, where would you put him on this list?
Yeah, Minamino had high hopes for him. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that great for him. I feel like it's just he was, I think, what maybe Shaqiri would have. He would have taken over Shaqiri's role, come in, make it competitive for the first 11. But of course, he's just gonna essentially walk us through some games that we might rest some players. I'm going to leave it at the very, very top of Coutinho to Barca, just because it was so short-lived, and he's gone on to have a decent career now at Monaco. And so give him his flowers there, but unfortunately for his time at Liverpool, the top of Coutinho to Barca for me. What about you, Gio?
Honestly, I had high hopes for him too. I was hoping, obviously, just how well he's worked in the Bundesliga. Just didn't translate. I don't think he fully got acclimated to the league. Yes, he had some decent performances as a professional but I don't think he fully got comfortable in the Premier League in order to really show his potential.
I think that's fair. I think the top of Coutinho to Barca is okay for me, and I think it's one of the missteps in Klopp's transfer activity, one of the bigger ones, and I think it's something that he did learn about, is that if you're going to sign a player in that age group, you have to be able to give them minutes to be able to adjust to the Premier League. And the difference between him and Shaqiri is an example. Shaqiri played in the Premier League. He knows how it works. He understands the pace. He understands the momentum. He understands the team. And if you're not giving a player like that's new coming to the Premier League time on the pitch to adjust, it's hard to be able to kind of expect a level of results. And Minamino wasn't able to do that at Liverpool, and I think that was part of the reason, where you could see the qualities, but it just didn't translate because there wasn't enough time in. That's my thought. But given that fact, top of Coutinho to Barca for me is just fine. But let's move on now to 2020. Someone who still plays for the club, I personally think is a little bit overrated. Again, that probably goes to my bias, where I hate when he's on the pitch, because that means Andy Robertson is not on the pitch. So that's, of course, with Tsimikas, who came over for Olympiacos for £13 million. Ray, where would you put him on this list?
Oof. Yeah, I don't necessarily think he is an amazing left back. I think he's just good enough as a backup. So I'm thinking maybe in the middle of meh, just because of his quality. But of course, he's been the long-term backup for Robertson. So maybe, Gio, you might rate him a little bit higher. What do you think?
I would. Yeah, you're right. I would have him in the has had some potential. I think there is a lot of pressure to fill in the shoes, but
That's fair.
I think even based off a lot of interviews that I've seen of players, I think the quality is there. So I don't think I think it's unfair for fans to go in thinking he is gonna fill in directly, fill that potential, and then exceed it. I think is tough. Is not a fair call. So I think he still has time, and he still has plenty to learn in order to be that everyday starting 11 type player for Liverpool, and especially now that it's not under Klopp, he still has even more to prove for the next manager.
Okay, fair enough. So Ray, you had him in Met. Jill, you had him in had some potential. Personally,
Yeah.
I would have him bottom up, continue to Barca because again, this just is what it is. I have my hate. It's I'm biased here, so let's just slot him easily in the middle of Met. Arguably, the always comparison I'll use for him is poor man's Zinchenko, which might be a little bit unfair. Even though I don't feel great about Zinchenko anyway. So let's move past that. Not an Arsenal podcast. Let's move past that and continue on to. I would argue one of one of the more interesting players where I think you're talking about the peaks and values of a quality player for Liverpool, and that's of course Thiago. Thiago joined off of Bayern Munich for £22 million, which, looking at the time period for a midfielder and the qualities he has, seems quite a steal. Quality player, but if you did not know, he still technically plays for Liverpool today. We believe. Where would you put him on this list, right?
Yeah, he came on against Arsenal and of course got injured right away. Again, one of the signings that I was very, very excited for had some potential is kind of what I'm thinking, but I wouldn't be mad if he's at meh just because he hasn't been great. And you guys can make an argument for him being at the very lowest tier considering his output for the club, but yeah, I'm gonna leave it open ended. I would say top of meh, low class, lower part of had some potential for Liverpool. Gio?
Yeah, he's kind of sitting on that border for me.
Okay, well, I'll jump in. He can't be met. The way that he plays, the way that he can pass a ball, the creativity he has, the quality of a player he has. He's had moments, so I have to put at least had some potential. I apologize. There's no way he's on the same level as Dominic Solanke or Tsimikas at Liverpool. He's not on the same tier. There's levels to this. That's why there's tier list, and I think Thiago has to be in the middle. Any disagreements there, gents?
I'm not
Any strong
mad.
pushback? Any strong pushback?
The only thing, like, I would have him higher too. It's just the consistency of being on the pitch, and when you're not on the pitch, you really can't do anything for your club. And I get it. He's technically phenomenal. If this was a list on who's technically the most gifted, I'd have him in masterclass too. But how often has he been on the pitch for Liverpool? So
No. Availability is an ability in itself, for sure.
Yeah. Like I'm not mad at he has or had some potential because he deserves to be up there. It's just teetering for me.
Completely fair. Let's move on to a player that Ray will fully attest to. I completely whiffed on. I thought he would be in a Met position, and I don't see how he's not a quality player. And that's, of course, Diego Jota, who joined from Wolves for £44.7 million. For me, I thought there wasn't as much quality there to be able to take him to the next level. Clearly wrong. Seems to be a very quality player. And I would put him right behind Wijnaldum in that quality player spot, considering his goal contributions, and he's still doing it. And just like we talked about Jurgen as kind of like that fourth winger, the fourth attacker, I would argue during the last 3-4 years, he's probably the best, outside of Man City, the best backup option available across any Premier League club. How do you feel about that?
Not mad at all. That's where I had him as well. Just yeah, it's been weird that he at his peak, at his very best for Liverpool, he's been probably the best striker at Liverpool in the last however many years he's been here. But of course, he's been injured so often that I can't really put him anywhere higher. So that fits for me. What do you think, Gio, for Jota?
Jota, yeah, no, and the quality player works out for me. Yeah, he hasn't. Once they do win the trophy, I think if we were to redo the list, I would have him above Genie Wijnaldum. I think he will surpass Wijnaldum once his Liverpool career is said and done, though.
Fair enough. I think that's fair. If he ends up winning a Premier League title, because Jota didn't, because he joined in 2020, so he doesn't have the silverware necessary to back it up. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe did he join in January? No, he didn't. Am I wrong about this? Is any recollection on the top of your head if he did?
I think he would have worked in the summer.
Either way, point being, I still don't think he's had enough time in to be able to find out him yet, but I do understand where you're going with that, Gio. But that wraps up our 2020. So only 3 more years left for Klopp signings. We'll do these last 2, and then we'll take one quick break and come back with the last couple of years. And for this next one, it'll be very quick, I guess. Ozan Kabak. I'm sorry, Ray. Who?
Let's do them together because this just opposite ends of the scale. Kabak, I'm gonna have to put him at Coutinho to Barca. He was supposed to be what Konate, the other signing, was supposed to be for Liverpool. I guess free shot because he was a loan from Schalke, who I think eventually got relegated. Not the greatest sign there, but of course, part of the year where Liverpool performed poorly in the Premier League, and then Konate coming in, I think I would put him top of quality player. I would actually put him at the very top of quality player, just because he, of course, has been a now with Van Dijk, the best partnership for Liverpool. On his day, probably top 5, top 6 in the Premier League, just based on defensive ability. I'm not sure what you think, Gio. What do you think?
Yeah, keep them right where they are. Perfectly fine. It's not like they had overly long stints at Liverpool, so well, at least not Konate there, but Konate on and off, quality when needed. Again, he's kind of teetering the fence for me of that Joao Matip. I feel like he plays around very good players that make him look a lot better than he is, but he's reaping the benefits. So, more power to them. So, yeah, no, I agree.
I think that's a very interesting point, Ray, when you brought up in terms of like top 6. I would argue, let's say, because we all probably would have, if we look at who's the number 1 center back for in their individual team, let's say Arsenal Saliba, Liverpool Van Dijk, with Man City Ruben Diaz. Who's the second best second option, like second best second center back of that individual team? I think he's in that conversation with the Gabriels, maybe with the John Stones. Some people may put him there. I would argue for France, he's the second best center back for France right now. And the fact that Upamecano would play in front of him, I think is a disgrace, in my opinion, especially considering how this season's gone in the Bundesliga. And over the last couple of years, I think Upamecano is one of the more overrated center halves. And I would play, in fact, Konate beside William Saliba as my starting pairing if I was the French manager. So I think him being top quality player, I'm completely fine with that. He has very solid performance, and I think down the road he may have potential to surpass that level. He may have, but even if he just stays as is, very, very good player. Kabak, sure, fine, bottom of Coutinho to Barca. With that being said, though, we're going to take one last quick break here and then wrap up the 2022 and 2023 signings. So stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, and to be able to continue our ranking our Jurgen Klopp signings for Liverpool, we're going to continue on with 2022. And let's start off with a player who signed in January, which the rumors were that he actually wasn't going to go to Liverpool at all. I think the team that wanted to sign him and were most favored to sign him for quite some time were, of course, Manchester United. And that was, of course, Cody Gakpo. I don't know how you feel, if you feel like you've dodged a bullet necessarily, Gio, or you feel like you missed out. But he signed for £42 million from PSV Eindhoven. Ray, let's start with you as a Liverpool fan. Where would you put Cody Gakpo? I know it's a short time period, it's just been a couple of years. Where would you put him on this tier list?
Yeah, so right off the top, a lot of these players, because it's only been a year and a half at most with the team, it's going to be tough to really give them anything other than has had or has some potential. Unfortunately for him, he's come at a time where he was kind of the stopgap that we just needed the legs in that front line. Unfortunately, he hasn't had the best return. I think in the Premier League. I know he's been great in other competitions, so I'm gonna have to put him at the top of meh or bottom of has some potential. Still young, could turn it around, but not sure how you feel. I would put him, Gio, though, top of meh or lower tier of has some potential.
To answer Max's question, do I feel like we dodged a bullet? Yes, because I think a lot of these stars are benefiting off a great World Cup, and all of a sudden, they are deserving of these, high transfer wages. I would agree. I think he still has some potential, though. He showed that he can fit multiple positions and as be flexible as a player, and still be able to sort of cut in, score a goal, or be a passer or facilitator for a team. I think he has that potential. I think he's still finding his role on Liverpool. Maybe the next manager will have a better role for him or have a better plan for him. But I think him sitting at the end of has or had some potential is perfect.
Fair enough. I would generally agree with that as well. It's completely okay. Let's move on to, I guess, Ray, you always refer to him as your star boy. I don't know if you're mocking that term or not. I find that a little offensive, but it is what it is. From 85 million pounds from Benfica, the Darwizi Nunes, where would you put him on that list? If you put him in Masterclass, we'll end the podcast today. I just want to let you know that right now.
Yeah, that's you don't really know what to expect from him, right? And I think that summarizes everything. So has some potential, could be a good quality player, but also if you give it 2 years and you tell me he scored 10 goals in the next 2 seasons, I'm not that surprised. What do you think, Gio?
I think he should sit top, but has had some potential. I think, again, the internet is a crazy place. The internet is a very harsh place. There's a lot of things that are still very good about his game. He's in the right spots. I think that shows his true football knowledge, where he's running as a striker. Shows a lot of potential there. The monkey off his back and the constant criticism, I think, is something he needs to get over. But once that is the case, and when he does eventually win a couple of titles of any sort for Liverpool, I think he will further cement himself at the club. So nothing to worry about. He's a very good player, very talented. So yeah, I think Tapa has or had some potentials is okay with me.
Fair enough. We'll leave him there at the top of has had some potential. And he definitely does. We'll see. Again, I agree with Ray there. If he scores 40 goals over the next 3 years or 10 goals over the next 3 years, would I be surprised? No. The pendulum can swing either way. And the best part is we'll be here to be able to cover it and find out what happens. Continue on. And I'm going to go to more of a negative side here. This is, for me, the worst signing under Jurgen Klopp. And I think the signing individually makes me do believe that maybe football is just a marketing scheme of how to launder money. Because the fact that Arthur Melo got paid to play for Liverpool is downright offensive. And I feel like I should deserve some of that money for having to look at the fact that he
play?
He played. He I checked. He played a game for Liverpool. Again, I don't know why or how, but the fact that he got paid to play football, I feel like I deserve a slice of something. But for me, he's last and the worst signing. Ray, what do you think?
Yeah, of course, I'll have to agree with you there. I don't understand how Liverpool can go from replacing or filling the minutes that you're going to miss Thiago with Arthur Melo. Yeah, definitely a money laundering scheme, of course, coming on loan from Juventus as well. Yeah, there was some money laundering there. What do you think, Joe?
Before I saw him on the list, I completely forgot about the signing. I'm going to be completely but with that being said, yeah, no, definitely one of the worst. Obviously, could be money laundering, could be the name factor, but never lived up to his potential, I think, at any big club he's played for. So, yeah, works out here.
Oh, man.
Definitely the type of player that was, if your name was ever attached to Barcelona, you suddenly get a couple extra years of chances, right?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the stats, he played more for the Liverpool U21s than he played for the first team. So that gives you enough of what you need to hear.
And he definitely wasn't under 21. Let's put it that way. To continue on for 2020, move back on the other positive side. A player who I think, even though he's been in a short time period, I would argue, I think we can confidently say he at least deserves to be on quality player. And that's with Luis Diaz, where he came off hot for Liverpool, picked up an injury. He's coming back around into form now. So I think he deserves, still has shown us enough to be there. But towards the bottom of quality player, that's my first shout, I guess, on my end. Ray, would you disagree with that? How do you feel about Luis Diaz?
I don't disagree. I'm just trying to think if he would be above or below Jota. He's definitely been more available. He's been a little more available, and for a period of time where Liverpool really lacked Salah and Firmino at the time, he did step up. Maybe Gio will remember fondly that he was also one of those players that was supposed to go to another club but ended up choosing Liverpool. Was supposed to go to Spurs but eventually joined Liverpool in January. But yeah, Gio, I'll toss it to you.
He's surrounded by great people. To finally come to that decision to not go to Spurs was a fantastic career move. I think going to Tottenham would have crippled his career. So that alone deserves to put him at quality player. But I do put him above Jota though. I think Oof. the way he's scored, the way in a period of time, in the span of say 8 weeks, they were not 8 weeks, 6 weeks, that they were looking directly at him for the offense without a Mo Salah, and him able to convert and score goals, game-winning goals at that, was absolutely huge. And obviously, you know, in a short span, he's already scored some crucial goals for Liverpool. He's sort of that energy guy that they always look towards when, say, a Mo Salah or Darwizi is struggling. And no, I think he's going to be a Liverpool player for years to come.
Fair enough. I'll have him there. I think we might be overshooting the fact that, because definitely I would argue Diaz is a better player than Jota, but has he done more for Liverpool in 2 fewer years? I think that's the tough part of it. But I do agree, eventually, given another year, we'll have him in that there. So I think based off of projecting it out, I think that's fair. To the final signing of 2022, and maybe not the three of us, but we have a mutual friend, Cav, who definitely has a hate towards this player. Seeing him in person, I think, Ray, you saw this player play in person. Fabio Carvalho, who got signed from Fulham. I think he immediately went back on loan, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then for £5.9 million, where would you put him on this list? Is there still some hope? Or are we moving him to where would you put him?
I mean, yeah, you could make the argument that there's hope, but so far in his career, and based on sort of the players coming through his profile of play, don't expect to see too much of him. So I'll put him maybe right above Keita in the Coutinho to Barca, just because he could have been playing in another Premier League team, at least on loan, and he came back on loan from the Bundesliga and now playing in, I think, the second division in England. So not the greatest return for him to England. So that's where I'll put him.
Gio, what about you? Have you seen Carvalho play before? Like that, I think that's a fair shout for Liverpool, because I don't know if I've seen him touch the grass many times there.
No, I've definitely seen him play. I think he has potential, but again, being sent, because he is young, being sent directly back on loan, I don't think he's had a fair shake. Now, especially with the new manager, coming in, does he even get a chance after this? Is going to be tough. So, yeah, I think him sitting where he's at right now on the tier list fits. Hopefully, he does get a fair chance under the new manager. He does have the potential, though.
I think it's too early to say where he is. I think Coutinho to Barca a little harsh in terms of money wise for them. It's pennies that they really spent. I understand £5.9 million is a lot of money to us, but to Liverpool probably not. I think though, it's just he can't fit into. I don't think he has the physicality and the pressing ability to play in a Klopp system. So I think we'll find out under that new manager if there is a role of a 10. Does he have the quality then to play in the Premier League and for a Liverpool side? Until then, I think it's impossible to know. So I think he deserves to be low. We'll leave him there, as is in terms of in the middle of Coutinho to Barca. But I think he has potential to climb if there's adjustments or changes. Gio, you said you want to jump back into that.
Yeah, I think there is a reason why Klopp was keen on him not being a sale. I think he does still see immense potential in him if he is molded correctly under the right guidance. So there is that as well, if you want to add that in.
Fair enough. Absolutely. So again, wait to see on that. Still, we're taking for what we can do as of right now, right? But now, again, this might be a little bit unfair for us to figure out, okay, how do we rank these final 4 players all signed in 2023? I think all in the summer window, in fact. And we're going to go we're going to put them all, as of right now, I'm going to just kind of slide them all into has had or has some potential, because there are different stages of the career, different time period for Liverpool. And we're going to go to you, Ray. Is there any of these players from what I list, Alexis McAllister, Szoboszlai, Endo, or Gravenberch, that you feel shouldn't be in that category given the time period? Of course, Szoboszlai went for the most amount of money, Endo for the least. Of course, that's probably more respective of potential versus timing of the career. Is there any of those 4 players that you would want to move into a different slot? At least what they've done so far for this season for Liverpool.
Yeah, when you put it that way, I'm double thinking now. But of course, I think Szoboszlai, there's a lot of there's a lot expected from him. So I think we have to move him at the very least to the top of has potential, to maybe lower tier of quality player, probably closer to the end of his career. That just makes sense, right? He's supposed to be the again, one of the number 8s that are taking over after the Gerrard number, so that in itself should be enough for that. What about you, Gio?
Szoboszlai, I think top of has or had some potential. I think he's already shown a glimpse of it. So yeah, no, I don't think he's quality player yet. I don't think he's proven enough just yet.
Is there any other player that maybe Gravenberch, McAllister, or Endo you feel like should be moved around at all, Gio?
McAllister, I think he definitely sits above a Gakpo, and I would even argue Thiago. But yeah, I would have him around there. And I think he's even inching the backs of Shaqiri at this point. Again, I think a title would seal it. But yeah, in and around that area.
Ray, what about you? Give you a final round look at this list. Is there any that necessarily maybe find tweaks of those 4 players you would want to move around? Any slides, adjustments?
One of my other star boys, Gravenberch, I think he has the potential to be above Thiago, just because the years that he has left, and he's been decent. Of course, recently picked up another injury, so that's not great. But I think he can be in that category. And then Endo, I think, might be a tough shout. Could be top of meh, just because he's been great since he's joined Liverpool, but his age profile, and honestly, I know he's been vital to how Liverpool have played this season, but it's because that profile was so missed. So I feel like he's been overrated because he does his job well, a job that Liverpool have severely lacked. So I'll leave it like that, but I'll guess we'll leave you the final decisions back.
So for me, Endo, I think he's fine where he is. It's only in today's world, £20 million for a midfielder. Not horribly wrong considering other teams are spending over 100 and not getting the same type of quality, I would argue, even out of that position. So I think that's not a horrible shout to be able to put him there for now. I think that if they don't replace him and he's still able to feature, maybe he stays there and he's able to solidify. But the question would be is if they're able to quickly replace him, then maybe he gets further put down the list because he doesn't really have the time in. I think McAllister, Gravenberch, they're both very interesting players. I think they could be good players, but I don't think in any circumstance they touch masterclass. So I think they potentially could be cone quality, maybe not. For me, I think Szoboszlai is the bellwether of how successful the next phase of Liverpool would be, because he has potential to be in that masterclass. We've seen flashes of brilliance from him, but we've also seen moments of stupidity. So even though a lot of people look at Nunes where he can be that bellwether, he can be that kind of that swing, it makes more sense. It's playing striker. You're expected the goals. You're in those positions. But I think in terms of how well the signing works out, I think Szoboszlai may even be more impactful for the next phase of Liverpool, because if he hits, he can be one of the better Premier League midfielders in a given time period. Maybe one of the best Premier League midfielders in that given time period. But if he doesn't reach it, I don't feel like any other players around them can get to that level where maybe we see that drop off of a Liverpool team going into the next manager. But if Szoboszlai is able to kind of enhance that level, be better and improve, and gets to that high potential that he does have, I think we can see an easier transition to the new manager and why he's a very fascinating player to me. So overall, I'm happy with how it shaped out. I guess one final look from either of you. I guess yell at me if we want to be able to make any changes here on the tier list. Let me just make it on our screen a little bit bigger so everyone else can see it on our end. Any other, I guess, shouts that you want to be able to make, either of you gentlemen?
Not for me. Not for me, Joe.
Looks pretty good. Maybe I wouldn't have Konate that high. I'm not a huge fan of Konate. Maybe that's just a personal preference, but I wouldn't have him higher than Fabinho. I think Fabinho was more crucial in his role than Konate is in his role. But that's more so a personal opinion. It could be argued any day.
Not mad at that either.
Not bad. Okay, that'll be our final veto change that we'll make, but otherwise it's locked in. Oh no, I completely messed it up and went all around. Okay, perfect. There we go. Okay, so Ray, why don't you take us out? I think that's all on the tier list for us.
Yeah, so guys, this concludes our podcast for today. If you guys like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social media. That's at houseof_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, get in touch with us via email, houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us will be Tuesday when we review this weekend's Premier League games. But until then, thank you, Mac, for joining us.
Peace out, Klopp. You'll be missed.
Thank you, Gio.
This is the downfall of Liverpool, boys. Come on.
See you soon.